And I saw, the world was moving at a very fast speed. In India, we were still using 1200, the 300, and we just started using 1200 bits per second.
1200 bits, huh?
Bits per second, BPS.
Right.
Not
Bits per
kilobits.
second. Not kilobits. Bits per
Bits
second.
per second.
Okay.
So these kind of modems were available in India. They were reasonably inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
In 88, you could get one for 12,000-14,000 rupees
12,000-14,000 rupees per modem.
for a modem, 1200
Yeah.
BPS,
Yeah.
which was also made in India.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
There were a lot of companies who have started making.
Okay, that's nice. That's good to
So
know.
there was a time when people had started experimenting with this
Right.
technology. At least they were there,
Yeah.
I don't think they were doing great because none of them exist.
Right. Right.
All those companies are gone.
None of them are gone.
They're all gone.
They're all gone. Okay. Okay.
I don't think they sold much of the early models.
Right. And then, like, from there, from the ERNet, then moving on to something commercial, something that is available for the
Public.
common man in India.
Yeah. I'll tell you the whole.
How did that?
So first we had to start. There was no network in ERNet.
Correct.
So, and on the VSAT network, nothing had moved. There was no bandwidth allocated, no transponder allocated. I think there was a huge waiting period for that, though we would have got priority.
Right.
But it wasn't there. And there were no dishes, nothing. So 1988, I came back
Mhm.
and I said, and I asked for permission to use dial-up.
Mhm.
Let me try low-cost techniques to link up computers,
Right.
which the ERNet coordinators agreed.
Correct.
So we started experimenting. So there was a Unix computer in IIT Bombay. I said, let's connect that up first.
Mhm.
So we linked up with that. The only problem was the only phone line was with the chairman of the department.
Okay.
So we took a parallel connection from that to this computer
Right.
modem.
Correct.
So I went set up a modem for them, and but we started working. It was working. We could exchange messages, mails. It was fun.
Right.
We got there was a institute called IGIDR.
Okay.
So there was a guy from the US who heard about us, and Indian
Origin fellow.
who had studied overseas.
Right. Right.
He came back and he joined IGIDR. So he had brought a Unix machine with him,
Mhm.
hand carried.
Mhm.
So he brought it over and he said, will you connect it for me? So he said, sure.
Mhm.
So IGIDR is just outside Film City.
Okay.
So I went to that campus, beautiful campus, and we connected. So we started connecting different
Computers with that particular network. Right.
into our own private network.
Right.
And the problem was that we had to. My objective was to connect it to ARPANET somehow,
Okay.
or to UUNet.
Okay. Right.
But then 1200 BPS did not make economic sense.
Right.
Dial-up costs were very expensive.
Okay.
Even a lease line to America, 64 kilobit, I'm not even talking about megabits and stuff, was
Yeah.
40 lakhs a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was communications was very, very expensive. Things were changing because San Petroda and C-Dot started happening.
Mhm.
Dear colleague and senior colleague and a dear friend from TIF, Dr. Pitke,
Okay.
was the first MD of C-Dot.
Okay.
So we knew that changes were happening everywhere across board. There was a lot of excitement in the air. So
Right.
anyway, I had noticed one modem in the West, which was from a company called Telebit,
Okay.
a Telebit Trailblazer.
Acha.
And that modem could operate 10 times, 20 times the speed of the 1200
Right.
BPS modem. There was no limit. Literally, technically it could go to almost 56 kilobits per second,
Okay.
which was unlike the 64 kilobits standard which we used in India and most of the world.
Right.
America had its own standard of 56 kilobits for a lease
Right.
line.
Right.
And then you get it in multiples of that.
Mm.
Even here, if you ask for a lease line, it's in multiples of the basic
Unit.
Unit is the 64 kbps.
Right. Then you multiply.
Then you multiply that.
Right.
So I looked around. I talked about the trailblazers. My director got very excited. People got excited. We wrote to the company. They said, okay, this, that. Then we found we could not get them. We needed special clearance because the modems were using a digital signal processing.
Okay.
The DSP was a very, for its time, it was way ahead of the chips that we were using.
Okay. Okay.
So signal processing chips were not allowed.
Okay. What is the reason? Why were they not allowed?
The problem with a lot of technologies was that you could put them into use into nuclear research, or in defense research.
Okay. Okay.
We were going into the high-end research, so the Americans didn't want us
that to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Nobody trusted anyone. These are the era of the Cold Era,
Right. The Cold War.
Cold War.
Yeah.
We didn't trust anyone.
Correct.
So we could get the trailblazer. We found, so when we would dial up Bangalore, it was an expensive call. This thing.
Right.
So it was basically, but the thing was that since the work had started, all the modem vendors knew me and knew about us. So they would come and they would display the newer modem they had. So some had started building a 2400 bits per second modem and they said, look at this. Then there was another interesting technology that had come about called MNP,
Okay.
Microcom Networking Protocol.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this company which started offering that particular logic in modems itself.
Okay.
So the MNP modems were an error correcting modem.
Okay.
So with the kind of telephone lines we had which were full of error,
Right.
there was a lot of noise,
Right.
the data would get garbled and so
Right.
file transfer protocols would waste a lot of time in
Right.
resending the packets.
Right.
So it was basically that if you have a 50-page document, every time you send a page at the other end, the checksums don't work out, then the page is being sent again.
Right.
And with our kind of lines, that was wasting a lot of time. So by doing that error correction at the modem level itself, you were getting a clean 1200 BPS link.
Okay. So that is what that
MNP was doing. So we
Got it.
started experimenting with these kind of modems.
Right.
And out of the blue, there was a gentleman who came from Crompton Greaves. And he said, I've got a new type of modem, which I would like you to try. I said, what is it? He said, this is a company called Ventel. And they're making these Pathfinder modems. So they're very good. So I looked at the specifications and I was stunned.
Okay.
The specs were the same as that of a Telebit Trailblazer.
Okay.
And these guys didn't know it. And he said, we are selling these modems, we've just got these and I can give you a pair to try.
Try. Yeah.
And you can get them for 30,000 rupees each.
Right.
My jaw fell. I said, what? You're getting Telebit Trailblazers for 30,000 rupees, no import license, nothing.
Yeah.
So we tried them out and I shook one to Bangalore, IIC, and I got a mail from my friend saying we logged into your computer. So our main computer was a computer called Shakti.
Okay. Sure.
We had given it the name Shakti.
Right.
And he says, we received speeds of 14,000 bits per second.
Right.
Not 1200 bits per second, not 2400 bits per second, but 14,000 bits per second on a noisy dial-up phone line.
Right.
So 10 times the speed.
Right. Which was magic.
Which was magical.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what got us going. And in the US, I had also given a paper at Princeton in an academic workshop,
Mm-hmm.
which was headed by my boss at Wisconsin, Madison. Gentleman who had built a network for computer science departments across the US called CSNet.
Okay.
So he was all, I mean, these are all people who were working closely together. I had met Winton Cerf many times. So these are all part of the networking community.
Right.
One of the people I'd met was a gentleman called Rick Adams.
Okay.
Rick Adams was a great guy. He had done some amazing work, a very silent fellow, an amazing coder.
Okay.
He could sit by himself and just sit and code. Rick Adams was heading a unit called CSMO, Center for Seismic
Okay.
Work, and that was spun off and made into UUnit,
Oh, okay.
the apex body for the Unix network
Right.
in the globe, the largest Unix network.
Correct.
So when I met him in US, I had asked him that, if we want to connect from India, we can dial up into your place. He said, you'll be most welcome, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got this Telebix, these Pathfinder modems, my boss told me, connect with the lab in Amsterdam, CWI. He said, we can go through them. The CWI guys, though they're very good friends and very friendly, they said, look, we'll have to pay for all the outbound traffic. So when we connect with the US or the rest of the world, we have to pay for that link.
Right.
So you'll have to pay us or share the cost of that line.
Correct.
My heart just, I said, it is sunk. I said, this is gone.
Yeah.
We coming from India and talking to these Europeans, and so I said another interesting thing. See how people were working on basic technology and building better products. So the basic technology of telex. Now, if I had written a letter to Rick Adams, it would take 15 days to reach him.
Correct.
That was the typical time for an airmail.
Right.
If you got it earlier, you were lucky.
Right.
So so we would use. I had to send a letter to him, not a tweet, as you said,
Right.
not a telegram.
Right.
Plus, I didn't even know whether he had a telegraphic address.
Right.
I didn't even know if he had a telex address.
Right. Correct.
So I had discovered earlier in '87. I discovered a company, American company called MCI. It's a communications, very large communications company. One of the global giants.
Right.
They had started a service called MCI Mail.
Okay.
So if you sent a telex in a particular format
Okay.
and it had a physical postal address,
Right.
you could send it to MCI World Letter.
Okay.
The MCI World Letter, I believe, was a computer program which would decipher parse the address,
Right.
because you had to send the letter in a particular format,
Correct.
and it would then print that letter, laser print it.
Okay.
In those days,
Yeah.
laser printed closest to where it was to be delivered.
Oh wow.
So they had set up a network in the US
US. Okay. Okay.
and some other places.
Right.
So if you send a letter, they would. So I sent out a MCI World letter to Rick,
Okay.
and 2 days later I get his response saying, "Sure, this is the dial-in sequence, and
Right.
these are the numbers that you have to dial in." Blah 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 blah.
Right.
So we started trying dialing up.
Okay.
Now again, there was only one phone in our entire institute which had ISV,
Oh.
International Subscriber Dialing.
Right. That was an issue. Correct.
I mean, we had tons of things. Even on the normal phone, people used to put a manual lock, physical, on the rotary dial.
I know.
Because they didn't want anyone to come and make even a local call, phone call.
Yeah.
Phone calls cost money.
Yeah, absolutely. They do.
So they would put a lock on it.
Yeah, I know. I've seen those.
The ones which had subscriber trunk dialing, which is the domestic long distance.
Yeah,
STD.
Yeah.
They even had a physical dabba covering the phone.
Yeah.
Because that was even more expensive.
Correct. Right.
So, because now by then the STD had come in.
Yeah.
You could at least dial long distance.
Right. You could.
So we started trying to dial up into this computer in Virginia.
Okay.
It was a disaster.
Okay.
Because the calls in those days, there were a lot of issues with phone lines,
Right.
One was the telephone departments, the DOT, the Posts and Telegraphs department. We earlier had a PNT
Okay.
in India.
Oh, okay.
So the Posts and Telegraphs were handling the postal mail and the telegraphy and telephony, PNT.
All right. Okay.
Which got split into Department of Posts and Department of Telegraphs.
Right.
So Department of Posts had come in. There was a international what we call OCS, Overseas Communications Center, which was made into VSNL.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of transformation was happening across board.
Right.
And the DOT said these guys, people in India are now dialing up and talking for hours on end for one call.
Yeah.
So they started a metering pulse. So our phone lines had those beeps.
Right. So you could hear a pulse.
You could hear the pulse every few seconds. But the modems didn't like it, so the networks were incredibly slow, even these dial-up calls.
Right.
So this international calling was a disaster because A, there were these metering pulses. B, it used to take so long, it would go like pip, 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 pip. And it would take a minute or two to even ring at the other end.
Right.
So by the time the phone would ring at the other end, your modems would start doing the handshake.
Right.
The software, our communication software would time out.
Right.
And
Right.
would disconnect.
Right.
This went on and on and on, so I kept on breaking my head on it. And then I realized that I can tweak and I need to get this
Yeah. Find a workaround.
way that my protocol waits forever
Right.
to connect.
Right.
And that finally happened on January 12th, 1989.
Okay.
That date I will never
Yeah.
forget.
Right.
So in the evening of January 12th, 1989, by then we had connected a lot of institutes in India.
Oh, okay. Right.
Our own group, for instance, the ERNet group, we had connected, and we managed to connect to UUNet.
Okay.
And suddenly all the emails that had been lying around in the folders and all,
Right.
they all started exchanging,
Right.
and suddenly we realized we could communicate with almost every research lab, every university.
That
In
had
the- in the-
active connection in the
that
network.
Most of them in the Western world, yes. In Europe and the US, most certainly.
Right.
And that is what most of our interaction was. Indians were not communicating with Asians or even the Japanese or so much of the South Americans.
Right. Mainly with the
US and Europe.
Right.
That was a life-changing moment, and
Right.
that is when we got connected to the rest of the world, and we
Right.
came on this network.
Right.
And by the end of Jan, in less than 20 days, I was getting around 400 mails a day.
Wow. Okay.
from various institutes, from almost every Indian student at first, and a lot of foreigners too, saying, "Oh, is my college on this network? You know, somewhere in Bhilai or in Roorkee or in Ludhiana."
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, not yet. We are slowly, we are now." So when this started happening, my boss got very excited. And then something dramatic happened globally. There was something called the cold fusion experiment.
Okay.
There were a group of two scientists, Pons and Fleischmann, if I remember correctly,
Okay.
who came up with the nuclear energy in a test tube.
Oh,
So
okay.
they said that, oh, cold fusion.
Right.
So nuclear fusion they would do in a test tube.
Oh, wow.
They said,
Okay.
we've done this experiment, and physicists around the world went crazy.
Okay.
And suddenly they said, my God, cheap power is available within our reach, and if we can replicate this, a lot of
Yeah.
skeptics were there.
Yeah.
But that whole sector got energized to an extent that there were these bulletin boards which were dealing with this cold fusion related work.
Yeah.
And there was a voluminous amount of information, people commenting on it and alternates. I mean, it was bizarre.
Right.
But everyone was interested in that
Right.
information.
Yeah.
So he said, oh, what we can do is, a lot of places in India are not connected
Right.
yet. But these are the places which are doing work related to this.
Right.
So for instance, TIFR was connected. I had
Correct.
gone and connected TIFR. That was not the issue. But then there were other places. So he said, oh, get this stuff printed, make 30 copies and physically dispatch them every day by mail. At least they'll get it in a few days.
Right.
But that got everyone excited. We got requests from everywhere on earth
Yeah.
to connect.
Right.
That was the power of communications.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think by end of 99, 100 institutes must have been connected
Wow.
from India. And these are not just one, there were also outfits like NASSCOM.
Right.
So I got a call from the NASSCOM chief, the secretary
Right.
then, before Devang Mehta,
Right.
Anil Garg,
Okay.
saying, we are trying, we are not able to connect. Will you please help us? And we had set up a account for them. They were unable to connect. So the next time I went to Delhi, I went over and I connected them. So that's what so organizations which were NGO kind of, or research labs,
Right.
universities, colleges,
They're all interesting.
whoever was ready to,
Yeah.
because we said that we are going to operate like UUnit.
Right.
We are not going to dial out to you.
Right.
You dial into us.
Right.
And as this was growing, by March, the volumes are humongous. And I think by end of March, we had carried more data than all the networks in India had ever transferred in their lifetimes.
Right.
So in just 2.5 months,
Correct.
pumping volumes and volumes. And
Right.
these Ventel modems had written to Telebit, and they had confirmed. They said, we confirm they've licensed from us and they're 100% compatible with the Trailblazers.
Wow.
So we were dialing into a bank of Trailblazer modems at UUnit. I think
Right.
the dial-up world had switched to Telebit.
Right. Right.
Because on the same phone line, you are
Yeah.
basically what that modem was, the DSPs were doing and the logic was doing was it was
Yeah.
taking the phone voice band
Uh-huh.
on a dial-up line
Yeah.
and breaking it into 50 plus micro channels.
Okay.
And then they were sending your packets on each independent channel.
Okay. Okay.
Modulating it on, instead of taking, what the normal modem would do is it would take 300 kilohertz
Right. A single
band in the voice band,
Right.
and modulate your signal, your data on that signal, and that's how they would transmit. But
Right.
these guys are using it, and every few milliseconds they were checking which of those bands were clean.
Okay.
So if there was a pip or a noise or a hum in the background,
Okay.
they would just not use those
Okay.
micro bands. So
Right.
if out of 50 they were getting 40, you were still getting a high speed.
Wow.
So this is an amazing technology,
Right.
and that changed the entire nature of the
The way people.
thinking in India. The people behind
Right.
the so-called professors and the directors of the institutions
Yeah.
who were a part of the core ERNet,
Right.
they were still working on the satellite-based networking.
Okay.
That's so expensive.
It is.
I mean, it's actually criminal to communicate between the metro cities with such a expensive and difficult, what should I say, what is in scarcity,
Right.
which is a satellite channel.
Right.
To use that for a piece of communication. I mean,
Right.
it's like using a radio, what are those satellite phones between Bombay and Delhi.
Right.
You know,
You don't need.
you don't need to. It's
You
only
have
for
other
remote
modes of
locations.
communication available.
It's
You have
only
other
for-
modes of communication available.
cheaper.
Yeah.
And
So Anil,
easier.
you know, on that note,
Hmm.
what we would do is we'll have to take a break now.
Okay.
Okay. And then you know, because this conversation, you know, it's given that, you know, when we even discussed this earlier, and when Arvind referred me to you, when we had this discussion, I decided that we would do a series.
Okay.
Because I'm sure that, you know, everybody would find it very interesting, the whole idea of how it all started and how we really got to where we are today,
Yeah.
where we, you know, cannot imagine our lives without an Amazon or a Swiggy.
Yeah.
So we'll take a break on that note,
Sure.
and then, you know, we'll get back to this conversation again and pick up from where we left,
Sure.
right? But really, I can tell you this, that, you know, the childlike excitement that I see in your eyes while you share that is really amazing. You know, it was so much.
It was
you know,
so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, we used to. So we had started, for instance, just before closing, just to, so that, you know, we
Yeah.
have a logical break.
Right.
Is so we, by this time, what had happened was, so, you know, matter of months, you know how things changed. The world knew about us.
Okay.
I went and registered the top level domain .in.
Okay.
That is yours truly.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So I had multiple email IDs. One was anil@ncst.in.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right.
So then the subdomains we started managing.
Right.
And then we said this UCP kind of email addresses won't do. So my colleague, Shri Kumar, brilliant fellow, he came up with this, he studied a program called SendMail very rigorously. That's not an easy piece of program to handle, but he went through it, understood it, and suddenly we had beautiful email IDs. So I could be anil@ncst.in,
Right. Right.
which was the ARPANET format.
Right. And which is, I think, pretty much the protocol that we have today. Also for
Today, because
Right.
things changed. The people in India were trying to do things differently,
Right.
but we kept on shifting them back to this.
Right.
And so we had so many. So thanks to all this publicity and stuff, I had literally a free hand on getting as many phone lines as we needed.
Wow.
So I had taken up a small room in the institute where we had put racks
Of phone line.
of phone lines and modems.
Right. Piled up.
piled up, dozens of them. And at night, I would sometimes turn up in the lab, and I would say, "Oh, Bangalore is dialing in, and here is so and so dialing in, so and so dialing." I could just look at the
The lights.
lights and
make out who's
I
active.
knew the schedule, what people were doing,
Right.
at what time.
Right.
And so slowly over a period of time, these lines became lease lines.
Right. Right.
You see, for instance, we got approval in March. I was in Delhi and
Right.
DOE, and they heard about the amount of communications that was happening, and they said, "This is time you guys go for a lease line to US." So they gave me that. He signed that, wrote that letter, and gave it to me. Unfortunately, I didn't make a copy.
Right.
It would have been good
Yeah.
historical
Yeah. It
imagery.
would have been a good piece of.
So some of them I do have
Right.
the communications with Telebit, with Rentel,
Wow.
with Rick Adams. So I have those telexes.
Right.
A lot of that is
Preserved.
preserved, yeah.
Right. Right. Probably in one of our sessions you could show us some.
Yeah.
It'd be very
I
exciting.
can do that, yeah.
I can tell you again that there are a lot of people watching these videos, they have no head or tail of what you're talking about. Especially the telex machine, especially those rows, the dotted lines that they
Yeah.
would print, and then you would go and actually have somebody type it out and make sense of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is really very
So it's
exciting.
you always,
There's a
as
world
in
of
software, you
difference, yeah.
keep stepping up, you use the lower layers to keep building.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of software. That's the
Absolutely.
beauty of technology.
That's the beauty of technology. Exactly.
It's like the phones which came out first,
Yeah.
the cell phones.
Right.
They were basic telephones, you could
Yeah.
just do two things. One was
Yeah.
SMS,
Right.
and you could dial a number.
Correct.
And they had a very small display.
Yeah.
And I had a bag which was full of gadgets. I used to carry it for lectures. So I had a media player which you could play audio and video.
Right.
And I had a camera, a digital camera, a lot of these things, and I would lay them out on a table when I would give a talk on the future of technology.
Right.
And I would say that in 5 years this is going to happen. You're going to see all these collapse into, and I would draw a block like this
Right.
into one phone, which
Right.
is what is happening.
Which is what is happening today.
So today the cell phone is a supercomputer.
Yeah, it is indeed. No doubt.
So it all starts
Right.
small.
Absolutely. Got that. Thank you, Anil. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Pleasure. And look forward to having you soon
Oh,
again.
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Not at all.
Pleasure.